Good afternoon and welcome to the Jay Duke Show on the Horse Network. We have a very special edition today. Typically we're interviewing fantastic equestrians and talking to them and learning their stories. And today we're talking about a topic that is going to affect all equestrians in North America. And that is the current situation with the World Equestrian Center in Ocala, Florida, and the United States Equestrian Federation and the National Snaffle Bit Association. So today we're going to talk about, the different issues with that. I have some wonderful guests to discuss that are welcome to come on board with me, and we're going to get some different viewpoints. If you have some questions as you're watching, please let us know and we'll try to get to them as best we can as we have a nice little roundtable discussion on essentially what could be the future of show jumping in North America. This is definitely going to have far-reaching effects on everybody from the grassroots level to the Grand Prix level. So thank you so much for watching this show, and I hope that we answer some questions and provide some fun along the way. So I do have some special guests. We have Mary Babick is here today. She is the president of the United States Hunter Jumper Association. Mary's been a wonderful source for me as far as information. She's always there to answer all the questions and help out, and she's a true advocate for the sport. She takes a little bit of some hits sometimes from some people, and she just keeps bouncing back up and putting herself out there. And I certainly really appreciate that, and I think a lot of us do. So Mary's joining the program today. We have Jimmy Turano is joining the program today. He's a friend of the program, a fantastic supporter of show jumping in North America. If you know horses, you're going to know Jimmy's name. You're going to know his voice. You've seen him ride for all he's done for the sport. So really grateful that he can step in for a few minutes today and give us his opinions on his thoughts on this topic. And then we have Ann Glavin has come on the show today as well. Ann is a writer for the Chronicle of the Horse for 4 years. She's very experienced in this topic. She's worked with the United States Equestrian Federation on a lot of different articles. She's a student at the University of Wisconsin in law school. So she's probably the smartest one of the bunch here, definitely one up on me. And also, what we're looking from Ann here is she's an amateur rider in the sport, and to get her opinions on, how this affects us. She's our everyday voice for riders out there. So Ann, thank you very much for joining the show as well. So as I said earlier, the situation here is that World Equestrian Center has been in production, and building now for a few years. Everybody knew it was coming, and they recently were trying to get dates for the horse shows moving forward with the United States Equestrian Federation. And unfortunately, there was a situation where the United States Equestrian Federation gave them 4 weeks of dates. And FEI was going to be worked in there. And then the NSBA, National Snaffle Bit Association, was going to legislate and manage the other dates there. Then what happened was USEF has rescinded those 4 weeks of dates, which has also rescinded the FEI dates from the WEC. A lot of acronyms. I've been trying to keep track of them myself. And so now we're in a situation dealing with the old topic of the mileage rule with horse shows, which is a very complex topic for people, and we're definitely going to discuss that in person here. So let's start off with Mary, and I do want to make clear to all the viewers, Mary is here representing the USHJA, not the USEF, and there is those two organizations are tied together, but they are not one and the same. And so, Mary, let's start with you, and thank you very much for joining us and getting in the line of fire here. What are your thoughts on the current situation? And I know you're working on a solution with this. What can you tell the viewers?
So I am working on a solution, and I remain hopeful. I've had conversations with leadership and the chief executive officer at USEF regarding this topic, and also some lengthy conversations with Roby Roberts, his wife Jenny, and TJ Campbell, their manager. And at this moment, I cannot say that we've come any closer, but hope springs eternal for me. I think what it comes down to for USEF is they're uncomfortable dealing with what they consider an unsanctioned show with really high amounts of prize money. in my conversation with Bill Maroney yesterday, he said schooling shows don't have 8 rings and a lot of prize money. And I said, well, but to me, this isn't a schooling show. It's what they've chosen to do is to go with a different organization. And so it is sanctioned, just not by USEF. I've been trying very hard to get World Equestrian Center to sanction with USHJA. And I think, those conversations are very positive and still ongoing. We do have an outreach program that would suit for them. And so we've also reached out to National Snaffle Bit to see if they haven't been working along with us as well. It's complicated.
Yes. There's a lot of different interests to factor in there. So from your point of view, Mary, you're looking specifically after the 100 jumpers. Do you feel it's in the best interest of everybody to make it so that shows can go forward and can happen in the way that Roby Roberts and World Equestrian Center has put out there, as far as with the prize money and as far as with the rings you're talking about, as far as with the free stalls? Are you looking to try to make all of that happen for equestrians?
So in my conversations with Robbie and TJ, they have assured me that National Snaffle Bit has a lot of infrastructure to help. They've written a rule book. They have drug testing. They intend to enforce all the sanctions from other organizations. If you're on the safe sport list, if you're on the if you've had a regulatory problem. So for me, is it an uncomfortable conversation in some ways? Yes, because within our calendaring system, which is currently controlled by the mileage rule, it's weird to have someone coming in from the outside with all this prize money involved. I would have preferred that Robbie sort of wait in line along as other people have done throughout the years, but he's very much wanting to go forward in this different way. And so I think times change and we have to change with the times.
Right. So Jimmy, let's go over to you. So you typically show in West Palm Beach, Florida in the wintertime. I don't specifically know where your plans were. Were you looking at showing at World Equestrian Center? Are you considering that as a possibility, or have your plans changed, or what are your thoughts as a top competitor and trainer regarding this situation?
For sure, we'd like to dip in and out of there. I think what Robbie was offering was incredible. As Mary said, maybe he needed to wait in line, but my personal opinion, I don't think we need to get rid of the mileage rule. I think the mileage rule has needed to be looked at for years and years and years. I think when circuits are being protected for weeks and weeks on end, I don't think is correct, especially if they're not doing it well enough. From what we can see from what Roberts are doing, the facility is incredible. I mean, forget the money being spent, just everything else about it, it's incredible. It's a breath of fresh air for us riders and exhibitors to have a new facility like that. It's a shame what we're all dealing with right now, and I don't know if we'll get through it for this year. We all hope we will. We had a kind of a informal meeting at the National Horse Show, myself, Rodrigo, McLean, John and BZ Madden, Max Amaya, Mara Delurier, some pretty big names in our sport here. And, we all would love to be able to go there, but we don't want to be handcuffed, after we go there. We want to be able to still, provide for our clients when we come back to West Palm Beach or whatever circuit we might be going to. So, it doesn't matter where you show, you get a little tiring going in the same rings week in and week out. So I think all of us were hoping and planning to go up to Ocala for a couple shows at a time. And, we're all hoping that somehow this can be, there can be a solution here.
Yeah. And you mentioned Rodrigo Pessoa. He wrote a lengthy piece on this and stating his, desire similar to what you just said. And I think many riders are on the same board. You're looking at improving the sport and making it better for the horses and making it best for the clientele and that. And what do you think on that? Were you planning to show at WEC or what were your thoughts, as far as a competitor to what you would like to see happen with the winter circuits?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's important to start by saying that I think what got so many of us at my level, the amateur level, excited about what is happening at WEC in Ocala is not specifically what is happening at WEC in Ocala. It is what Mr. Roberts has been able to show us is possible to run a circuit completely outside of USEF and to do it at that level and to do it the way he's doing it. I'm very glad that the conversation has turned to realizing, I stand by the first line of my status. USEF has become useless to 95% of us. 95% of us don't need it to enjoy our hobby. We don't need it to horse show. We don't need it. And it baffles me that USEF does not understand that, does not look at that calculus and say, okay, we make all told about $15 million off of people like me every year. We have to make sure those people are seeing a value add in. And they didn't. And they ignored us for years and years and years and years. And then Roberts comes along and he offers very affordable shows in Ohio. They're still not affordable to, a certain sector of the market, certainly more affordable than most day shows. Everyone gets excited about that. He says, hey, I'm going to do the same thing in Ocala, going to open another circuit in Ocala. Everyone gets excited about that. And USEF somehow misses that we are finally seeing the needle move in the direction that people of my level and people of my income level need to see the needle move. And to see USEF just spit in the face of that and say, take their dates away. No, we're not going to join in on this. It does not surprise me how much frustration was expressed online at that USEF cannot see the picture that we're all seeing, which is you got to move the needle. You have to make the sport more affordable. Here's someone trying to do it, and here's how you're responding. It's incredibly frustrating, is what I would say.
So it's safe to say, as a member of the United States Equestrian Federation, that you don't feel that your voice is heard, and you don't feel that your concerns are addressed.
I don't feel it. Yeah, I know it for a fact. I mean, yeah,
I think so. Mary, let's talk about that for a sec. Because I do know that you do you personally do a lot to try to respond to people on social media and try to put, be out there and answer questions and be a voice. When you hear a member, say, well, we don't feel heard, and my interest in not being looked after. What do you feel that the USHJA is doing to help members to feel that their fees are going to a good cause for them?
We try to be as open and transparent as we can. That starting 2 years ago, we provide our financials at our annual meeting each year. We put them in a pie chart. It's just easier for people to look at it that way. Although any member up through COVID could always come to the office and ask specifically to see our financials. Clearly during COVID, this is not happening. But we try to let them see that anytime anyone asks us a question, we try again to give the most open, fair answer that we can. We realize that Anne is actually our largest demographic, and it's a place that we've been trying to improve. And that change is coming, but Anne, it's slow, and I'm sorry that it's so slow. But in an organization that is mostly run by volunteers, like I'm a full-time horse trainer and then also a full-time president, not all of my volunteers give quite as much time as I do, although many give a lot of their time. So it is really tough to make change. One of the changes that we are making is we know the calendaring system, which is known as the mileage rule, is broken. And so about 6 months ago, I pulled together a group of people. We've been working on the calendaring system and opening it up, making sure to try to tie show standards, and that goes to what Jimmy was saying, tying show standards to licensing. We've put forward a rule change about the mileage process, and we're just pushing from inside. Bill Maroney is actually part of our group, and he's been fairly receptive to us. So we're just going to keep trying to push, and definitely apologies, Anne, because it is slow. It's painfully slow sometimes.
Yes, it is. But so that the thought is there, it's on the table, and now it's just a matter of making that into something practical that actually is working for the people. Go ahead, Ann.
And if I can make a point, I do think it's a much broader conversation than the mileage rule. Don't get me wrong, the mileage rule is broken. I'm actually not of the camp. I know a lot of people think we should just throw it out the window. I don't think that. There is a place for it, a better version of it. But I think the discontent with USEF goes so much broader than that. And when we're talking about affordability, I think we have to be clear that there is a difference between affordability for people that are already going to A shows and want those A shows to be a little bit cheaper, and affordability for people of my income bracket, of the more average income bracket, that just want to be able to go to a safe, fun horse show, have a good experience, and spend. I'd say the best example of what people in my income bracket are looking for is what George and Nona are doing down in Florida. George and Nona are phenomenal horsemen. They're running that Ridge Series. I believe they run it in New Jersey as well. When I went down to Wellington as a Chronicle reporter with very little money, I worked off my board. I brought my truck and trailer. I'd haul over to George and Nona's. It was a phenomenal experience. I could spend, I think I got out of the office for like $150 or something. USEF recognized horse show, and I jumped around on polo fields over beautiful fences with great competition. It was a fantastic experience. That is what we are looking for. And it's not as simple as changing a mileage rule and changing the A show circuit. And what the other thing I would say about George and Nona's down in Florida, they did that in spite of USEF. They did not do that with any help from USEF. They had to fight tooth and nail to get recognized. They spent untold amounts of money getting that circuit to be what it is, to provide that service for people like me. And it's so frustrating that, once again, it's an example of someone trying to do right by us, listening to the market, listening to us saying we need more affordable options, trying to do it. And instead of USEF coming in and saying, this is fantastic, let's help these people do it, they did nothing but put roadblocks in their way. And I just think it's a much larger conversation than the mileage rule.
It is. No, for sure. It is a much larger conversation. I mean, from the USHJA perspective, we have our outreach program, which is just rebranded as of the 1st of December, that provides a much lower cost, free membership product that is comparable to a USEF product. And it gives people a chance to come into the system if they choose to do so. We have rider rewards program is what we call it, where you compete, all your classes count for swag points, where you can then reward yourself with either medallions, ribbons, product, whatever you choose from that menu. But we also have, we changed our horse registration fee to an annual at a very low cost. So if you have a young horse, you want to produce a young horse at a lower cost, you can get out of a show and pay, say, $20 a class, so $60 or $80, and have a great experience. So we are trying different things. Is that recognized in the normal fashion? No, but I think that there are people who are looking for a quality experience, don't actually want points. Most of my customers actually don't show for points at this moment. They just show because they love their horse. They want to have fun. They want to go and be with their friends and have a very enjoyable experience. So we're sort of reaching towards those people.
I want to get back to Jimmy because I know that he's on a time schedule and can't stay with us for too long. And again, thanks for joining us here. So let's talk about it from a Grand Prix level for a moment and an FEI level for a moment. So if the USEF does not approve of this, essentially if a Grand Prix rider competes at WEC, then there could be retribution for that. There could be penalties for that. Essentially, that would mean you would not be able to compete there at all. Am I correct in saying that, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, that's the word. I mean, I've talked to Lizzie about it, Lizzie Chesson, and she said yes. And then I've heard rumor that, that USEF will also follow suit, that if we show there for that big prize money, maybe it'll happen the same with USEF. And then I'll go a step further. I was actually talking to Maria Bancona, steward, yesterday. And Maria told me that she heard the same with officials, even USEF, that if we officiate there, and Mary, you might know because I saw that you're on the roster to judge there. I heard we might be in jeopardy of being suspended there as well.
Yeah, so Mary, let's address that. So you are on the roster to be a judge at World Equestrian Center this winter, and you have spoken to USEF about this, and tell us their reply.
So I asked Bill Maroney last week whether or not he would like me to disengage from my judging job. And his answer was, we're not going to tell you what to do. You're going to have to make that decision yourself. So the way I look at it is I would judge for an unrecognized show if they asked me. It's how I got my start. I really value unrecognized shows. I was at one yesterday with my students. So I told the management that I would honor my commitment. Now, as to what will happen, Jimmy and I are a little different. Jimmy is an FEI person and I am not. So Jimmy might possibly be have a restriction for 6 months if he judges or rides at a show that's deemed unsanctioned by the FEI. What would happen to someone like me is nothing. There's no change. But if, let's say we had let's make Anne into a person who rides FEI but also judges hunters. If she judges hunters at this unrecognized show, what would happen to her? And for that, I'm waiting for an answer. Bill said that answer would come from the FEI directly. So I think that's an interesting topic, though, because then you're letting an international body rule national sport, and I'm questioning that.
Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to, one of the problems is, it's been put in print that we will be notified 7 days ahead. So in Mary's case, let's say she's signed on to judge. If she's not going to find out till 7 days before, as Billy Maroney said to her, I can't tell you what to do, but 7 days prior, they tell you can't do it. Mary now has, not really fulfilled her commitment with the show. She's got to back out last second. And although we are talking FEI, I've heard strong rumors that this will be the same for USEF. If I judge there, then I will not be able to judge for USEF. Or if I ride there non-FEI, I will not be able to go USEF. I wish and hope that somewhere someone would clear this up. I know the rumors are out there. I know USEF is hearing this. They're hearing us. Mary asked Billy the question. They should put out statements. I know, Jay, you personally, from what I understand, asked Bill Maroney or USEF to come on, and they refused to. I don't know why we're covering things up. This isn't personal against any one person, but I don't know why we're not covering up. Let's put it in black and white. Let's know where we stand. And like Ann said, and I said in the beginning, I'm not saying let's get rid of the mileage rule. I think the mileage rule has a place. If you have a show, let's say like Monmouth County, that used to be a very good horse show back in the day when Leo Conroy ran that horse show, that show needed to be protected. That was a nice show with a nice Grand Prix and a country feel. And that was a good show. You have a standalone event like Devon or Upperville, they don't really need to be protected. Devon is going to stand on its own. Upperville is going to stand on its own. But those mom and pop shows, there's a handful that do need protection. I feel strongly that these circuits that run for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they should not be protected. If they're not giving us a good product, they shouldn't be protected. Showing has become, as Ann has said, I'm not a wealthy person myself. I bust my butt. I'm a trainer. I'm a professional. I work hard. Showing has become about a billionaire, not a millionaire. You can't be a millionaire and really do this at a high level, the level you'd want to get to. I show myself, my wife shows, my son shows. This has become a billionaire's sport. It shouldn't be that way. And as long as we are allowing, which we will allow, monopolies, it is going to get worse. If you allow one person to continue to run a circuit without protection, sooner or later, they will be able to charge whatever they want. And we are handcuffed. We cannot do anything about it. So it needs to open up a little bit, not get rid of the mileage rule, but it needs to be looked into, because a monopoly is not a good thing. Prices are going to keep going up and keep going up. And we're going to run people out of the sport. I know, as Mary said, there's a lot of local shows and there's some shows that aren't rated. But for the people that do this at the rated level and want to go to Devon and want to go to Harrisburg and want to qualify for big events or the medal finals, let's just say you have a child that only wants to do the equitation. You've got to keep this affordable that these kids can do this. And it's becoming where it is a billionaire sport, and that's not right. It
is, absolutely. And so we have a question from the audience, and Jimmy, I know you got to go in a minute, so we're going to throw this.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
For you. So it's from Brian Wee. What do you think are the odds that FEI would ultimately recognize the National Snaffle Bit Association as an acceptable government body and therefore not sanction people who compete there? So obviously you're not an FEI official, but you do have, a lot of contacts and a lot of influence there. What do you think about that question?
This is obviously personal opinion. I think WEC has John Gardner in there, who is a very good guy, very knowledgeable. He's been involved in a lot of big events. You know him well, Jay, I'm sure.
Yes.
John is a big name. And I think with the right conversations between FEI and John and the WEC management group, I think it could be done. Can it be done for 2021? I don't know. We're running out of time here, but I think it can be. I don't see why USEF has to be the only answer. I really don't. If the National Snaffle Bit, as I've read, they want to have drug rules and they want to have real rules.
They have. To be clear, they have drug rules. They have. I've read their drug rules. They have.
This isn't the wild, wild west. They want to do it the right way. I read an article the other day that if you're suspended and you've done this and you've done that, they don't want you there. They don't want those people there. They want clean sport. I don't know Robbie that well, but from what I do know of him, I think seems like a stand-up guy. He's a family man. And I think he wants clean sport and keep it nice for families and for everybody. But so back to the original question, I think and hope that with the right conversations and without anyone getting their back up, I think it could happen.
Okay, that is good here. And unfortunately, I can't comment on this publicly, but when it comes to the regulations as far as medication stuff, I think people are going to be very pleased with what they hear from the NSBA moving forward. And like I said, unfortunately, I can't get into specifics on that, but I do think it's going to be quite good. I want to read here. So I did ask the USEF to come on to the show, and they did not. And I understand that. It's unfortunate. I wish they had, but I get why they didn't. But they did send a written statement, and I do want to read that here briefly, and then I want to get your opinions on that, please. So we have from we recognize and understand the many perspectives shared by our members regarding the licensing of USEF events at the WEC for the 2021 winter season. The mileage exemption process is in place to manage the components of competition, calendarizing and utilizes a number of factors in the overall decision-making process, including consideration of competition standards, competition and calendar factors, sport growth and visibility, concentration and migration of competitors, experience and expertise of competition management. USEF supports and welcomes new competition organizers, facilities, and investment in the benefit members, and has worked to introduce new venues into regions with existing competition dates in the past. And this is where it's interesting. And in this specific instance, offered various opportunities to WEC representatives and management. We value the input of our members, and it is our responsibility as the National Governing Board of Equestrian Sport in this country to not only provide strong governance in a way that consistently prioritizes safety, welfare, and fairness, but also serves our members. We continue to review our licensing process and protocols and encourage our members to actively submit and share their feedback, ideas, and concerns so we can move forward together and strengthen the sport for all. And what is your opinion on that statement?
So I worked for Chronicle for a number of years. A large part of my job as a Chronicle reporter was getting quotes from USEF, getting straight answers on hard questions. And let me tell you, that is some hard job because USEF does not want to give you a straight answer on just about anything. And this is a perfect example. What did that statement actually say? That is public relations at its finest, dancing in a circle, not actually saying anything. Like, for instance, you said that line, offered WEC multiple opportunities. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. You can't just say these general terms and say, we stand for welfare and we stand for the competitor. It's lip service. It's classic. This is maybe a bit of a tangent, but this is classically what frustrates me and so many people with USEF. They want to sit here and put out these statements and put out these press releases and say, We're for the grassroots. We're for the everyman. We want to make showing more affordable. Look at where their money is. I know people saw this on my Facebook. USEF's tax information is publicly available. USHJA's tax information is publicly available. They pull in $10 million. In 2018, they pulled in $10 million from our membership fees. They pulled in $6.9 million from our drugs and medication fees. I think they pulled in another 3 from competition fees, which is horse show related fees of us horse showing. They take that money, and then you go to the page that says, what are they spending it on? They're spending $13 million on a high performance. They're spending 6-figure salaries on the top 6 people that work at that organization. And this is just a little personal, like a little detail at the end that you scroll all the way to the bottom of this W990, page 50, 2018. We gave 3 people grants totaling $35,000. To me, this is like the clearest example of USEF not getting it and spitting in the face of normal competitors that can't afford to show in this sport. We gave $10,000 to Chester Weber, the heir of Campbell's Soup. We gave $10,000 to Ms. Wrigley Miller of Wrigley Gum, and we gave $15,000 to Jane Forbes Clark. And don't get me wrong, each of those people has done incredible things for the sport. Chester's event in Live Oak, phenomenal event to at least attend and cover for the Chronicle. Ms. represents us phenomenally in driving, obviously. Jane was on the U.S. Olympic Committee board for, I think, a decade and was AHSA president, obviously. This is nothing against him personally. If USEF's handing me a check for $10,000, I don't care how much money I have. I'm taking it. It is insulting that USEF would turn to all of us competitors and say, we represent you, we care about you, and then take our membership dollars and hand them to billionaires, and then expect us to sit here and listen to them when they want to talk to us about horse welfare and, oh, don't go show at Robbie's show. It's not USEF recognized. I mean, enough is enough. We're just sick of it. We're just sick of nothing but lip service and not a single dollar spent to make our situation better.
Wow. Now you're in law school, are you going to be in the trials and out there arguing? Because if you were, I'd want you on my side.
I am going into litigation, yes.
I think you're going to do very, very well with that. But that's really well said. I think everything that you're saying there, it's backed up, it's solid, it's a little shocking, and it's great to hear that. And thank you for bringing those facts to the table. Because again, it's like, well, here's people scrounging to get together money to get to that weekend horse show, and the dad has 2 jobs trying to make it happen. And then here's this money going to billionaires. So I get that. Mary, what do you think about, could this be the start where maybe the show jumping industry in North America is just so large that we need to actually almost have like 2 distinct circuits? You'd have the Grand Prix FEI level circuit, and then you would have, the circuit for everybody else. Do you think, it said these shows have been combined where they have everything from cross rails to Grand Prix, but maybe it's not working anymore. And what are your thoughts on it where we, potentially, let's say you would have the FEI USEF that would do the top end and, the people that go to indoors and chase the points and do that sort of thing. And then you would say have the NSBA do something where they're working on the level for the other 95% of the riders out there. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's certainly an interesting idea. The whole thing of, I think Jimmy is a great example of this, is he's a Grand Prix rider, and I've seen him down at the short stirrup ring with his kids. So, we as trainers cross across many, many levels, and we sort of done this to ourselves, where we drag all of our customers from the kid who's cantering over poles on the ground, the 2-6 adult, to our junior hunter kid, our amateur owner jumper lady, and then, maybe we are lucky enough to have someone who's riding in the Grand Prix or the International Hunter Derby. So, we try to serve a lot of markets as trainers right now. Separating it out, I mean, for someone like me, that would be really simple, because I don't need to go to the high end of the sport. I no longer have customers that cross over there. But Jimmy, what about you? How would that go for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be very difficult, like you say. I mean, I'm a little bit, I dabble everywhere a little bit. I'm still riding at the top level. I'm riding some top hunters, and I've got pony kids. My son's 10. I train him. So it would be very difficult to spread it out. My personal feeling is back to, I think there's room. Our sport has gotten so big in this country. You can run shows down the road. When we have Wellington shows of the WEF running right here in Wellington, and Deer Ridge is running down the road, and there are a ton of horses at Deer Ridge, you don't even notice they're gone. And even when we're running at the WEF facilities, and they've got the Grand Prix and all the jumpers running down the road at Global, again, you don't notice that people are missing. Or when Georgia Nona are running their shows, there's enough to go around. I promise you, if they had hits running in Ocala and they had WEC running in Ocala, there's plenty to go around. Is there plenty to go around in a small show in Virginia? No, probably not. But that's, again, why these big circuits maybe don't need the protection anymore. The shows are really too big to begin with. They're so overgrown. And if USEF and these things that we read, if we really want to talk about safety, welfare, these shows have really become unsafe, in my opinion. I mean, it's amazing that someone doesn't get killed every day on the WEF showgrounds. David Burton is amazing. He is probably the best horse show manager, in my opinion. He is on the job. If someone falls off, he's there within 30 seconds. If a horse gets hurt, he's there within 30 seconds. He is everywhere. But it doesn't matter. Just the sheer numbers alone, it's just too big. The same at hits or any big circuit. Lake Placid, I mean, they do a great job in Lake Placid. The shows are too big. You gotta have some competition. You have to have options of places to go. When I'm driving to my shows and I'm driving down the highway and I say, where do we want to stop to eat? We get off an exit and there's a McDonald's, there's a Burger King, there's a Wendy's, and there's a Kentucky Fried Chicken on every corner. It's competition. It's competition. And it shouldn't, I've never heard anyone say, we can't go to Wellington. Jimmy Toronto is there and he's the only one allowed to sell horses there. Everybody here is selling horses. Everybody's allowed to do it. And I think it's the same. The shows have gotten way too big. And because they've gotten so big, it's really become a welfare and a safety issue, because we go, let's go to the footing. The footing, how do you maintain the footing for that amount of horses? You've got to run around there with the tractor. It all comes down to numbers. And I think, and this is nothing against WEC or HITS or any particular one show, there's plenty of horses to have a couple circuits in different places. And I think we've got to ease up on the mileage rule.
Well,
Okay.
Jimmy, if I could, sorry.
Yeah, let me go back on that. I'll get you in a moment, Ann. So, Jimmy, I agree with you. But let me play the other side for a second. So, many of these horse show managers, they've been promised these horse show dates. They've been promised this monopoly. They put in some cases, millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars into their facilities based on the fact they know they're going to have these dates and they're going to be able to have that. And now you're going to go to them and say, oh, by the way, actually, you're not going to have a monopoly. You're going to have competition. I know you've invested all this money into it, but we're actually going to rescind that. Well, that sounds like some lawsuits coming your way pretty fast.
Yeah, I don't think you can just pull the rug from under them. I think it's a process. As I said with the WEC situation, I don't know that we'll come to a solution for 2021. I think conversations have to be had, meetings have to be had. They've given some concessions in the past, and Mary probably knows this more than I, but when Deer Ridge was allowed to run right here in Wellington against the WEF shows, somehow that was allowed. Chester Weber ran in Ocala against HITS. Somehow that was allowed to happen. Somehow there's some wiggle room there to allow it to happen. And I'm not saying yank the rug and tell them tomorrow we're running another circuit right next door, but I think there's got to be, wheels have to start in motion, because the shows are just too big and we need options. We need another place to go. We need to really look out for these monopolies, because right now things are big, but there's a lot of people that are going to be run out of this sport and run into the local market. And, that could really affect a lot of us.
And go ahead.
Well, I like Jimmy's point about how, and I completely agree, Jimmy, the weeks in Wellington where we would have shows over at Deer Ridge and at WEF, you did not notice them missing. I mean, the horse show is enormous. Florida's a unique situation. It's able to support, I think, a lot more horse shows. But I think what you would see if you open up and let more people like the Ridge and, WEC in Ocala and WEC and HITS in Ocala, not only are you not going to notice missing horses from Wellington or Ocala, you're going to notice that people are going to start coming back to the sport. I could list, off the top of my head, 10 friends who have lovely, lovely horses that they just enjoy at home because they cannot afford to show at the USEF A level. But if there was some competition and a cheaper option for them, they're sitting there, they're taking their lessons, they're going to their clinics. They love doing this. They are not participating because they don't love this sport. They are being kept out of the sport that they love by USEF and by things like this that let it price them out of the thing that gets them up in the morning. And it's incredibly frustrating to see that. So I think I completely agree with Jimmy that not only will you not notice that the horses are gone, more will come out of the woodwork to support that market of more options.
Okay, so Mary, I want to ask you this question, and I want you to answer it from a representative of the USHJA again, because you're not here for USEF, but you are here to represent the 100 jumper people in your association. So in Florida, they've had multiple circuits, and that they've made exceptions to the mileage rule, and there's we've discussed that there's been other exceptions to that mileage rule. In this case, there's not an exception to the mileage rule, and it's been well discussed and documented that there's a history there with Struzari and with Roberts. And do you think this is just something that is not in the best interest? This is just a personal type of situation, or what are your thoughts as a member of the USGA that your riders are being put into a difficult situation over something that really shouldn't be this complicated because it's been done before?
So originally, USHJA, it makes recommendations on the mileage exemptions, and there's a factor list in GR 315 that we have to use. So our initial recommendation, which has nothing to do with what we think of World Equestrian Center, it has to do with the mileage rule itself. Our original recommendation was do not license the World Equestrian shows in 2021. And an exception was made by the mileage exemption panel because a mileage exemption panel is launched when the federation has one point of view, which they said license, the internal one, and we said don't license. All right. So a panel was launched and they gave, I think, 4 dates, 2 premier, 2 regional. And this conversation has really come up around the fact that those dates were taken away. That's what really started us down this bad rabbit hole that we're in right now. And it comes down to USEF's statement the other day that, it was that we would be confused, we wouldn't understand the difference between the recognized weeks and the unrecognized weeks, that there would be potential horse welfare violations. I have said this often now to the Federation leadership. I do not think that our membership is that dumb. I think,
Thank you.
We do understand the difference. And yes, I'm sure that the Roberts should not have put out a prize list that was commingled. I think people make mistakes. And so uncommingle your prize list and send it out again. Send one out with a green cover and one with a red cover, and explain that, the weeks that you're going here are premier, these weeks are regional, and okay, here's the rest of them. They're not sanctioned at all. But this is it's a place where the leadership of the Federation and I just do not see eye to eye at this moment. And, I'm comfortable with them not seeing eye with me, but I'm not going to give up on my point.
So it sounds like that you tried to make a bit of a compromise when you said there you agreed to do the 4 weeks as opposed to all of them, because you could have said, make an exception for the 9 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever it is they were looking at doing. But you tried to make a compromise there with that suggestion of the 4 weeks. It sounded like, okay, that might work. And now, of course, that has blown up in everybody's face. But I have to say, why not just approve the whole thing? Like, why just the 4 weeks? And again, I understand if you don't answer that question, but I think I need to ask you that question. Like, why not just say, hey, go for it, and we'll make an exception for the whole circuit?
So it was actually not USHJ. That was the USEF mileage panel that made that exception.
Okay.
So I would love to answer that question, but I don't know the answer to the question.
Okay.
Yeah, I do know, talking with Robbie, that once he was given these 4 dates, that he really wants to have 12 weeks of shows at his facility. And so he chose then to go 8 weeks unrecognized. And, at that moment, it's my job and my board's job to reach out to National Snaffle Bit and see, how do we work together? How do we provide a different product? How do we support the Federation, which is important because they're our national governing body and, they're the reason that we have rules and whatnot. And how do we also create a more affordable situation for Anne and people like Anne? How do we do that?
Right.
We can't be afraid of something new. That's what I'm saying, I think. We're just cannot be afraid of new.
But Jimmy, I'd love to get your perspective on this because this is also a problem this is kind of a pet topic of mine. I've given it a lot of thought. So I have thought, how do we fund the Federation and the top level of the sport and team athletes and, like you said, Mary, writing rules, educating stewards, educating officials, that all costs money. How do we pay for all of these things if, we make this argument that things need to be more affordable, that this sport should not be funded on the backs of people like me for the benefit of billionaires and team riders? I think there's a very interesting argument to be made. And Carl Cook first brought this up to me, and I thought, wow, we should really think about that. You look at other sports, their tax information is also all publicly available. You look at how someone like, for example, US Soccer funds themselves. They go and they send their marketing people out and they get $50 million of sponsorships and royalties. And granted, I know it's soccer, it's not horses, apples and oranges. I get that. But they're not funding. US Soccer would never turn to the 4th graders playing at their 4th grade league or the adults playing a pickup game on the weekends and say, hey, we need to fund the top level of the sport off of you guys. They'd say that's ridiculous. We're here to enjoy our hobby. Yes, we want it to be safe. Yes, we want there to be rules. Sure, we'd be willing to support our federation with some, reasonable fee, but why on God's green earth should we be funding the top level of the sport? The top level of the sport needs to be going out there, getting its sponsorships, Carl brought up the point that a lot of sports will sell the commercial rights to their sports, the broadcasting rights and that sort of thing, to a different organization. And that's how they can fund the top level of the sport, something that actually comes from the top level and not from people like me. So Jimmy, I'd love to have your perspective on what you think of just generally funding models of the top sport that don't involve funding it entirely from people like me.
I got to tell you, when I get, that email goes out every couple of weeks or whatever, I get an email saying, to support the teams and so on and so forth. And I'm actually offended every time I get that email because I think to myself, every horse on that team is owned by a billionaire. Half of them are ridden by billionaire. So I'm thinking, why are you reaching out to me to fund a billionaire to send to Europe to tour for the whole summer? So I find it very, very offensive myself when I see that. So, I agree. I mean, I think there's plenty of ways to create that funding and do that funding, but I think to keep going after all the regular members to support billionaires, just if you really think about it, I think some people get the email and send the check, but I think if they really thought about it, I personally just find it offensive.
Yeah, I do too, and I agree with that very much so. And I think what we're really hearing here, and this is what we knew, and I'm just trying to bring this opinion in a different format to people, is there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between the USEF and between their membership. And somehow that bridge needs to be crossed, and it's coming. The bridge has collapsed here with the situation with the World Equestrian Center, and we're all hoping that it moves forward. So, Jimmy, before you take off, it looks like you're going to go in the Formula One race, and best of luck. Before you go up, what would you like to see here as a solution? Again, you're such a thoughtful, educated guy on all this. Do you have anything that you would personally kind of like to see happen for yourself?
I ideally like 99.9% of the people, which we've read everything on Facebook. We've all seen everything on social media. I think there's not one rider or trainer or professional that doesn't want this somehow to run. We want it to run. I guess, and Mary knows better than me. I mean, I guess, unfortunately, maybe that the steps were taken in the wrong order. As Mary said, we have given shows, we've allowed them, we've given allowance to run against other shows, and maybe they put these shows in place and then maybe asked for the allowance, but still they did give them the 4 shows and then took them back. So, maybe Robbie and them, to give them the benefit of the doubt, weren't exactly sure how the process went early on. But regardless, I mean, I would love for them to come to some solution, because I think this is what 99% of the USEF members want. We want a facility like this to run. We want other circuits to be able to run. Somehow, it's hard to go so far one direction with fees and then say, okay, we're going to lower them. The only way is going to be competition. There's got to be a competitive show or circuit run against every other circuit to do it better. If I've got a big barn running down the road and they're saying, look, I can do this for this much, I might say, you know what, I can do it for a little bit less, a little bit at a time. I think we have to have some sort of competition to bring the fees down. And to your original question, I hope they come to a solution. I think every rider and trainer hopes that facility will run. And with that, I've got to go. I got to go pick my kids up at school.
Jimmy, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye, guys. Have a good time.
Hi, Jimmy. Thank you.
So I'm going to give the last word here to Mary Babick. And Mary, again, thank you for so much. I think this is such a difficult position that you're in, in this whole thing. And, for you to come out on my show, and I really appreciate that, and be so candid is much appreciated. So I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Mr. Toronto. What would you like to see, as a short-term, like immediate type of solution? I don't mean down the road in 5 years type of thing, but what would you like to see happen, as a representative of the USHJA and of thousands, tens of thousands of equestrians? What would you like to have happen?
Well, and I don't want to go into the very specifics of this because I think it's all private information at the moment, but I've been back and forth between USEF and Robbie and TJ Campbell now several times. And I think that I would like the USEF to take a deep breath and understand that Robbie's moved towards them. And if they would take a deep breath and step towards him, we might actually be able to find a solution. And if that solution involves something that's very new, a new organization that's running high dollar classes, well, let's be open to different experiences. And so that's why, this morning, one of my first jobs was to reach out to National Snaffle Bit and say, hi, I'm the president of USHJA. I'm delighted that you're entering our market. What can I do to help you? Would you like to become an affiliate of USHJA? Can we become an affiliate of yours? How do we work together to solve problems? And that's for me. I am a very solution-oriented person, and I just pray that we can find, that I always say the thing of the North Jersey coast and Amtrak run on the same track. And I think that we could do the same between the Federation, USHJA, and National Snaffle Bit. I think it's not too much to ask. So I may have been rebuffed, but I'm kind of like the Terminator, that liquid metal Terminator. You knock me over, I'm in a million pieces lying on the ground, and suddenly I'm stood back up again. So here I am standing up. And Anne, I know it's so hard for people to understand, but USHJ actually does stand up for the members, and part of our job is advocacy. Could we do better at it? I guarantee you the answer is yes, but I myself try to learn every day, and I learn by reading what the members have to say. So,
well, I just want to say, Mary, I have so much respect for you. And when Jay told me, actually Carly told me that you would be on the show as well, I said, great. Mary is somebody I've interviewed you a couple of times for Chronicle before. You get straight to the point. You don't dance around it. Yes, I very much appreciate what you are doing and trying to do, and I'm glad that. I hope and pray that USEF does not have the short-sightedness to try and apply a similar FEI rule to WEC and say if you go show at WEC, then you can't show at a USEF event, or if you go judge at WEC, then you can't go judge at a USEF event, because that would be yet another example to add to the list of ways that USEF not only doesn't promote affordable sport, but actively stands in the way of affordable sport. So I hope that doesn't happen. And I'm glad that we have advocates like you that are advocating for a different path.
Well, thank you for your words. And now I got to go run a conference call. So
okay, Mary, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I just want to mention here to people from the NSBA who are not familiar with it, and I was one of those people when this all broke a week and a half ago. I was not familiar with the National Snaffle Bit Association, but they've been sanctioning horse shows for over 30 years. They've annually sanctioned over 400 shows across the United States. The association's mission is to promote the sport of showing horses and has approved discipline-specific events for a number of years. NSBA Hunter Jumper members will benefit from the association's record-keeping of horse and rider earnings and show results, as well as expanded year-end awards for the division, including a Hunter Jumper Horse of the Year award and programs to enhance the competition experience for breeders, owners, and exhibitors. That's a statement from NSBA that was sent to us. They did want to have a representative come on the show. Unfortunately, the timeline was just so tight to try to make this all happen. We're going to get to this again in the upcoming weeks for sure. This is definitely going to have a follow-up conversation on this very important topic, and we'll hope to have some people from other organizations as well, because it's all
Maybe
about
a USEF rep. Wouldn't that be wild if they could find it in themselves to send a human person?
Yeah, I did. I tried with USEF to speak with them about the safe sport. They did provide a written statement, and that was great. But it is challenging with these organizations, and you're right, that connection there, and what I try to hopefully have done to the viewers today is to provide a little bit of information and connection. Hopefully we've answered some questions. We've probably brought up more questions, and we'll definitely try to get to those. Make the comments, and you're going to see a lot of this all over Facebook here. And make the comments. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can and try to get you the answers that you're looking for. I want to thank Horse Network for putting this together. This was a bit of a new venture for us this time. We're having this roundtable format, and it was a lot of fun. Carly put a lot of work into this. Carly Sparks, the magic behind the keyboard. I want to thank Equivault for presenting the show. Equivault's the very best online program for training your horses at home. There's over 400 lessons on the Equivault from top people, Ann Krasinski and Michael Matz and Luciana Denise and amazing people out there. So check them out if you're looking to enhance your training program. And yeah, stay with us with this. Next week on the show, though, we're going to change tracks. We got Ann Krasinski coming, not Ann Krasinski, Beth Underhill's coming on the show. Canadian Star team member of mine, and cannot wait to have Beth on the show. She's a wonderful interview and a wonderful person in the sport. So thank you so much for joining us. And Anne, thank you very much for being here. Your candidness was amazing. You were a super guest, and I really appreciate everything you had for us. And we'll see you all next week. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.